Welcome, future doctors, to another episode of the Future Minority Doctor Podcast with Dr. Zulma
and Marina, where we bring you conversations to empower and inspire you to contribute to your community and the world by becoming a doctor.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Future Minority Doctor Podcast. Dr. Z and I today are going to talk about the AMCAS Fee Waiver program, which is a program through AMCAS, which is the American Medical College Application Service. Long words, but AMCAS, right? And it helps you to pay for some of the expensive things that go into the whole application process. Dr. Z will go into that in a little bit of detail. But one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you about this today is because we've seen many students who assume, oh, my family doesn't make that much money. I qualified for scholarships and financial aid through my university. I'll probably qualify for this AMCAS fee waiver, which will help me to cover my application fees. Well, unfortunately, we've had a few circumstances where students assumed that they would qualify, and then when it came down to applying, they did not qualify. And suddenly they have to fork out $1,000 or $2,000 of their own money that they don't have in order to cover their application costs. So we don't want you to get into that same circumstance that has happened. And remember that for applying to just 20 schools through AMCAS, it costs $75 for your first application. And then in 2026, it will be $47 for each application or school thereafter. And that's about $1,000 just in primary application fees. And then secondary application fees are even more money. So we don't want you to be in this circumstance where you suddenly have to fork out money that you don't have. So Dr. Z, tell us, what is it that the AMCAS Fee Assistance Program covers?
Okay, so it's really awesome, way better than when I was applying to medical school, because I did apply and I was a recipient for this, thankfully, but it would only help us cover medical schools. Currently, with the program that they now have, it'll cover, as Dr. Marina said, up to 20 medical schools that you'll be able to apply to. So that's a big chunk of money. But nowadays, it also will help cut down the cost of the MCAT. So if you're planning to take the MCAT as well. So right now, from what I saw, it costs $355 for the MCAT. Well, if you qualify for this program, you'll only pay $145, which is a big difference. It also will give you access to MCAT prep materials online as well, which I think that is huge. And then you get a 2-year subscription for free to have access to the AMSAR. So again, it's a great program if you do qualify, which we'll talk about it, but it'll really help you save a lot of money because, as you guys know, applying to medical school is so expensive.
Absolutely. Yes. I don't think I qualified for it back in the day, but I know many of our listeners would qualify for it. And please consider it if you need help paying, but make sure that you look into the criteria. So we're going to go over some of the eligibility criteria just so you know what that is. So first of all, eligibility is based on a family household income. And that family household income has to be less than or equal to 400% of the federal poverty level. So if you go on the internet and you search federal poverty level guidelines, it's kind of complicated. And you'll find tables because it depends on how many people are in the household. The federal poverty level for a family of just 2 people who are married is going to be less than for a family of 2 parents and 5 children, right? Because the needs are greater. So you have to look based on the number of people in the household. And then there will be tables that say 100% of poverty level, 200% of poverty level, 300%, 400%, right? And so you have to find out how much that maximum family household income is for the number of people in your household. Now, AMCAS uses household income, not just student income. This is really important to realize. So that means that if you are under the age of 26, unmarried, your family's entire income will be counted into this. So you might be like, well, I moved out of the house 5 years ago and my parents don't help me anymore. According to the guidelines, that doesn't matter. Your parents' income is still counted for the purposes of eligibility criteria for this program. So really important to keep that in mind. However, if you're married, then you're considered independent. If you have legal dependents, like you have children already, then you also are considered independent and you don't have to count your parents' income. If you are a veteran or active duty military, also you're considered independent. And then if you're a ward of the court orphan or you were emancipated prior to 18, then also you're in that different category. So make sure you determine your dependency status and whether your parents' income will be counted or not, because that's one of the places where students make assumptions that are wrong, and then they end up finding out that they don't qualify. They also have requirements in terms of you must be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, a DACA recipient, or an asylee or refugees. And you have to have documentation showing that. And speaking of documentation, Dr. Z, what are some of the documents that may be required to apply to this program?
So just real quick, Dr. Marina, based on what I saw as well, even if you're married, you still and under 26, you still have to report your parents' income.
Ah, gotcha.
So it doesn't,
Okay.
they don't they actually have bullet points of what's considered, like you have to be legally emancipated from your parents, or I think I saw somewhere in there, like if you have been seen your parents in years and years and you're disconnected, you can also apply for it that way. But even if you're married, you still have to report your parents' financial information if you are under 26.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because that might have changed, but thank you for clarifying.
Yes. So just as an FYI for any of you, but most of you, I mean, there might be many of you that aren't, but just to keep that in mind. Now, in order to qualify, you do need to have a U.S. mailing address. So if you live internationally or whatever it might be, you will not qualify. All right. So you do have to. And then I can't remember, but I think you do have to be also a citizen, am I correct on that, Dr. Marina?
I mentioned you have to be either U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, DACA recipient, or asylee or refugee. You have to have documentation of those things. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you have to not be currently accepted or enrolled into medical school, and not a graduate from any medical school, or not preparing to apply for residency as well. So those are some of the things that you will need. They will be asking for an ID that actually shows your address. All right. And they won't allow a passport. So if you're thinking you can give that, that's not an identification, because they really want to see that you are residing in the United States as well. Okay. As a side note, for the income guidelines with the family, I did come across the website that there's different guidelines if you are living in Alaska or Hawaii as well. So they have these nice charts within the AMCAS website that you can go into. So depending on how big your family size is, it'll tell you what the limit is there. But then if you live in Alaska or Hawaii, it's a different number as well. So just as a side note, but it's already there for you. So you can look at it immediately to see if you qualify or not, if it's worth your time even applying for it.
Yep. Now, another important note, you will need some of your parents' like tax documents. So if you are in that dependent category and your parents' income is going to be counted, then you have to make sure that you have their tax returns basically available. If you don't have copies of their tax returns for the prior year available, then you either have to have an IRS verification of non-filing, meaning that it's an official letter saying they did not file taxes for whatever reason, or you have to gather W-2s, pay stubs, unemployment statements, or other income evidence. So be prepared to go digging for some documentation, asking your parents or guardians for that documentation, because that will be required.
Correct. Yeah, I remember when I applied many moons ago, I had to go in and look through my parents' disorganized files for their income tax returns and put in all that information. And then even if you've worked as well, you have to include your financial information as well. And of course, if you're married, it would be your spouse's as well. So yeah, you'll have to have all that. They want proof and proof and proof and proof that you are needed, and it's reasonably so, right? This program is made for people who really are in need.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually an important point on that, like I had a mentee a while back who one of the things that made it hard for her to qualify was she wasn't able to get her dad's documents in time. Like for some reason I forget this exact circumstance, but he hadn't filed taxes. And then it was like, it ended up being too difficult to get documents that she needed in order to prove her family's income. And that caused a really long delay of many months. And I don't know if she ended up even getting it in the end because of that hiccup. So please know and plan in advance, look up the requirements so that you know whether or not you will apply, and you will qualify, and you can plan accordingly. Speaking of planning accordingly, make sure you pay attention to timelines and deadlines. The AMCAS fee waiver application usually opens in January each year, and it's a good idea to apply as early as possible because you can't get retroactive reimbursement. So for example, if you already submit in June and you paid the fee and then you apply and qualify, they're not going to give you back the money that you already paid. It has to be approved before. And if you're going to use it for your MCAT discounted rate, then make sure that you apply for it months before you register for the MCAT in order to get that discount. Otherwise, again, they're not going to retroactively give you the money back. Also, generally speaking, it takes about 5 to 10 business days for them to process your application. However, during peak times, especially May through August, when everyone is trying to submit everything through AMCAS and their staff gets really busy, it can take up to 4 weeks. So please don't wait until the last minute. It opens in January. Apply as early as possible.
Yeah, honestly, too, since it's the planning, you guys want to make sure, like, if it's in January and you're might as well take advantage if you qualify so you can get the discounted price for the MCAT, right? So if you
Of
apply
course.
early, you get granted early, you're able to take the MCAT, you get your results, but you're already set to apply to at least 20 medical schools. So just like everything is pre-med wise with planning, it's also with the application as well. So it's just any penny helps if you can save money, and it's so helpful. And I'm happy that there's something available for you guys. So just do apply for it early, as depending when you're planning to apply or take your MCAT or apply to medical school.
Exactly. And just a little quick reality check about the money and the cost of applying to medical school. I know we did an episode a while back about the costs of applying, but just to reiterate, in case you haven't heard that one, your primary application fees, right? So $175 for the first application. On average, students apply to 20 schools. And so if you add that up, I did the math, it's about $1,060, right? Just for 20 primary applications, right? That's assuming it's through AMCAS. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of DO applications. Some students do like 10 MD applications and 10 DO applications, or, blah, blah, blah. But just using averages through AMCAS, about $1,000 just to submit your primaries, right? Then your secondary fees are going to be anywhere between $60 and $150 per secondary application, right? So let's say it's an average of $100 per secondary and you end up getting 12 secondaries, right? That's $1,200. Okay, so $1,000 plus $1,200, we're at $2,200 already just on application fees, right? Then what if you have to buy yourself a nice suit to wear on your interview day, or a nice jacket or something, right? That's another $100, right? Or more. And then what if you get in? Most schools require a deposit once you get in. And that deposit can be anywhere from like $500 to $2,000 or $2,500 to reserve your seat for the medical school. Now that money will go towards paying tuition for your first semester. And if you end up getting a bunch of financial aid, you might get that back. But most schools require a seat deposit fee once you get in like typically by April to June is when you have to get them that money. So reality check, this is an expensive process. Don't do it unless you feel like you're ready. We have an episode called Am I Ready to Apply to Medical School? Please go listen to that. Because one of the saddest things for me is when I see students spend $2,000, $3,000 applying to medical school and then they don't get in because they weren't truly prepared and they hadn't gotten very good advising, and they were going on a hope and a prayer that they were going to get in without having done the work necessary to really confirm that they were ready and that they were a competitive applicant. So It's expensive. However, the AMCAS Fee Waiver program is there to help for those of you who qualify. Make sure you look into it, you learn the requirements, you learn what you need, and you apply early so that you can save as much money as possible in this expensive process.
Exactly. And remember, as Dr. Marina said, it's not retroactive. So if you apply and you've already paid, and then you see this program and you qualify for it, you're not going to get that money back. So you need to
Exactly.
do it beforehand, all right? So, and it'll hurt when you're like, there goes $1,000 out of my hand.
I know. It's painful, man. It's painful. It really is. Yeah. Yep. The piggy bank gets emptied very quickly in this process. Yeah. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. We hope you found this content and this episode helpful. And we hope that you're able to hopefully investigate this program and that many of you will qualify and get some help in the process of applying to medical school. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Peace and love, everyone.